I'd like to call the meeting of October 9th, council meeting together at 8 o'clock, and we'd like to start off with the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, thank you for your unfailing love, your blessings and goodness. Thank you for your faithfulness to guide us and see us through times of uncertainty, for lifting us up and setting us on high. Thank you for scripture that comforts and reminds us of your promises, plan, and provision. Please take away our fears and worries and help us be good stewards and to sow wisely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before everybody sits down, I'd like to do a moment of silence for Melvin Mason. He's Stratford Star editor, just passed away in the last few weeks. Thank you, everyone. Is there an approval of minutes, for regular scheduled meeting of September 10th, 2018? Mr. Hickey, there's a movement. Is there a second? Mr. Perillo, is there any discussion about the minutes? If not, I'll call this to order. All in favor of accepting approval of minutes, say aye.
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 Motion passes 8-0. There is no ceremonial presentations and awards. I'm going to go to communications. We're going to accept a letter of resignation from Mr. Walter Stelmack, Parks and Recs. His term is expiring December 2019. And now I'd like to ask the mayor to do her report.
Thank you, Council Chair. Good evening, everyone. Go Red Sox.
Boo.
The game should start soon. Anyway, on September 11th, there was an event at VFW commemorating September 11th. We experienced all hazards training on September 12th at the Emergency Operations Center. There's several things that have been happening on all the weekend of September 15th. The Rotary had a golf tournament. It was a great success. Two Roads had their Oktoberfest all weekend. There were thousands of people there. And Bonfire on the Beach, which also had probably 15,000 people, run by Pat Maddow to benefit Swim Across the Sound, was held on September 15th. The Latin Music Festival was Sunday, September 16th. Felt like there were 10,000 people there too on that little plot of land. That was really attended well. It was a lot of fun. Thanks to Olga and Gladys, who are our queens, who run everything so well for the Hispanic Scholarship Association. That same day we had a fire on Research Drive that condemned the building that Cub Tech was in. Councilor Pia the next day was pouring drinks at the Beach House Grill. Yeah, he did a great job. His charity that he was supporting was Police Activities League. The Beautification Committee had their awards ceremony on the 20th of September. Many people received the beautiful awards for helping make Stratford beautiful. It was well done by the members of the committee that are small in number but mighty in spirit. The Baldwin Center Men's Club had their induction of officers on Friday, September 21st. On Saturday, September 22nd, we're in full swing with the Celebrate festivals. There was Forest to Shore Day that started from the shore all the way up through the forest, a lot of activities, and the apple pie contest at Lordship Community Church, which I got to be a judge and really enjoyed that job. On Sunday, September 23rd, Stratford was represented very well at the Beardsley Zoo. It was Stratford Day. And we missed our 10th District Councilwoman who was not there, or her husband, who was the executive director of the zoo. They were on a well-deserved vacation, but we represented Stratford well, yes. On Monday, the 24th, Sterling House had their golf tournament and raised over $30,000. The 25th of September was Stratford School Readiness Event. That was at Paradise Green. Not thousands of people, but definitely several hundred families were there to celebrate the start of school. On September 28th, which was Friday, we had our annual Stratford Health Department assessment with the State Department of Public Health. They commended our health director, who happens to be here today, Andrea Boyce-Finn, and how well our health department operates in one of the 3 only licensed health districts in the state. So we're very proud. On Saturday, the 29th, EMS and Fire had their open house day. It was well attended across the street. It was also Civil War Day at Booth Memorial Park. And October 4th, Mary Dean and Andrea and I and Tina Beto went to New Bedford, Massachusetts, at the invitation of the Army Corps of Engineers to see their dredging project that they have going on in the harbor. The dredging that takes place there is very similar to what we would anticipate happening at the Army engine plant. And so we wanted to determine the noise level, the activities, if there was any odor. We were happy to say it noise sounded like machinery, like it did when we were dredging the channel, the river. And there was no smell, which was great. We saw 2 or 3 bald eagles, a lot of fish. So it was very, very interesting. Glad we went. But it looks like if that's how we decide to work with the Army Corps of Engineers, and the developer, that the dredging cycle and the dredging schedule could speed up, and we could improve the project length of time. So that was what we were really going to look for. Today was the domestic violence vigil outside at Town Hall. And then we had 4 ribbon cuttings for businesses that are new to Stratford. DaVita Dialysis, which is on Hawley Lane. Beyond Home Care Staffing Services, which is Barnum Avenue. David, I think that's your district. Paradise Psychics on Main Street. I don't know which one. Billy, I think that's you. You go into the psychic area. And then Dream Kitchen Designs, also on Main Street in your district. So a lot of good things are happening in Stratford. And then Chairman Connor had invited the Economic Development Director, Mary Dean, to come up and give you some more updates on what else is happening in town.
Good evening, everyone. So Center School redevelopment, we went out for an RFQ in the end of August. And when the submissions came back in September, we only got 1 submission. So we are taking a step back and looking at the development and figuring out how we can possibly, send it out a little differently. We don't feel it would be fair to the community to just have 1 submission for a request for qualifications. So we're taking a step back. We'll probably send it out in mid-January. After the holidays. As far as the demolition goes, UI will be disconnecting the utilities this week. And so once the utilities are disconnected, standard demolition can request a permit from the town, and then the demolition will begin for the above ground. So we're back probably about 2 months from the schedule. So demolition and removal of the above grade structures should begin October 24th. So as soon as they get the permit. Demo and removal of below grade structures, November 21st to December 3rd. And then backfill grading, topsoil, and I'm going to just put a parenthesis around seeding, December 4th to December 14th. So it'll be cleaned up, but I'm not sure that there'll be seeding in December. Maybe we'll have a warm weather. So that's about it for Center School. Sikorsky Route 110, we had a meeting with their engineers and MetroCog and John Casey last week. It looks like the application is completed and was submitted to DECD. We're waiting for some surveys for off-ramp crosswalks from DOT. They've increased pedestrian. They have additional pedestrian walkways that are direct right to the bus stops. The bid will be submitted in December for the project. And with the construction beginning in spring. And they should be able to leave all of the lanes open because the milling work that they thought they were going to have to do does not have to go deep. So it's not going to be as big a project in terms of digging up. So we're working very closely with them and, you know, looking forward to the project moving ahead now that we've gotten all the answers we need from DOT. Complete Streets just finished an RFQ search for the design, and we'll be choosing that within the next week, and got a lot SIP grant that will be announced at the end of the year. So the 2020, the Complete Street should be starting to be built. So we're looking at just a year away. And I think that's it now, unless anyone has any particular questions or interest of a certain project.
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Can?
Thank you, Chairman Connor. Hi, Mary. The rotary on Stratford Avenue, say in front of two roads in Town Fair.
Yes, we are looking for pre-design by the end of the year. Bruce can add comments if you'd like. We've been working for over a year now with the 4 businesses that we had to look at, you know, giving them some property, taking some property, and one of them has made a late along request, which has delayed us a bit in getting the pre-design work. So we're trying to finish that up, and we want that to go through by the end of the year. Any additional comments on that, Bruce?
All we're trying to do is for the properties that are affected by the traffic circle, we're trying to make sure that the traffic circle isn't going to cause them financial hardship. So we're trying our best to make accommodations to everybody who's asked. It's sort of like trying to get a committee to agree on everything, but we're working on it.
So we've had multiple meetings, but it's moving ahead, and we only have one now that we're in negotiations with. Everyone else, 1.5. Oh, the church. Yeah. Any? Did you have another question? Or, oh.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
So going forward, the committee reports, there's none, and I'm looking for a motion on 4.3.1 Building Needs Committee. Mr. Ticky?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept 4.3.1 with the favorable recommendation from the Building Needs Committee, Turner change order number 89B, cafeteria point of sale for $25,739. And for Turner change order number 891, RF1 272, additional smoke and heat detectors for $27,779,000.
So there's a motion from Mr. Ticky. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Pia? Is there any discussion? Any discussion on this? If not, I'll call to a vote. All in favor of approving this change order, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes 8-0. Mr. Ticky?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to waive the rules to suspend the rules of procedure to add the following items to the agenda. The Building Needs Committee held a special meeting tonight, October 9th, 2018, and referred the following items to the Town Council with favorable recommendation. Turner Construction change order number 093, cafeteria condiment station for $31,577. Turner Construction change order number 102, Phase 1A, turnover allowance for $282,288. Turner change order number 103, West Parcel contaminated soil, final change order for disposal for $201,255. I'd like to make a motion to accept.
Is there a second to waive
The
the
motion is to add them to the agenda
Excuse me.
first.
Or motion to add to the agenda.
motion to add to the agenda?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion from Mr. Tiki, second, and from Mr. Pia. All in favor of adding this to the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes 8-0. Now, Mr. Tiki.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to
Approve.
make a motion to approve the change order number 93-102-103.
Second from Mr. Harden.
And you may want to indicate on the record, Mr. Chairman, that the funds are still available in the budget for this, for these change orders. Is that correct? For the project?
Correct.
Okay.
The funds are still available.
So as noted, the funds are still available. Is there any discussion about these items? Mr. Can.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to ask which budget account these funds are being taken from. Without belaboring it.
Mr. Llewellyn, can you come forward, please?
And Alan, before you start, also, condiment station, $30,000. I think ketchup and mustard and...
It's, so it's a little more complicated than that. They're kind of labeled as condiment stations, but they're actually at the point of sale station that's going kind of in the middle of the cafeteria. And so the condiment stations will also kind of function to support that point of service station. When the Sodexo people came in and first started looking at the three-dimensional model, they highlighted both the point of sale and the condiment station as one of the greatest enhancers to efficiency and their ability to move students through the cafeteria area, especially those who aren't buying, a full lunch. So rather than have a student get tied up 15, 20 minutes in a lunch line, there's this sort of center console point of sale area with everything they need right there, and they can kind of get themselves out of line and move through the food purchasing process quicker. We actually, in doing our due diligence, we actually explored a cheaper option with going with sort of pre-bought system furniture that would then get built into a wall and need to have a countertop or a matching top put onto it. As it turned out, that sort of lesser inexpensive option was still coming in the below $20,000 range. And so tonight, both the subcommittee and the Building Needs Committee kind of made a decision that it would make more sense to have this centrally located feature item have the same millwork and same finishes and tie in with the rest of the cafeteria rather than stick out like a sore thumb and be considered an afterthought.
Thank you, Alan. And I have, concerns about the two contingencies, the one that said it belongs to Turner and the one that belongs to the town. And are these contingency monies, or are they part of the
No, this is all coming from the town's owner contingency. The town's contingency funds for the project.
Is that account listed on the handout?
It's not. It's listed on the budget report that CREC puts together, and they usually issue that at our regular meetings. Tonight was a special meeting, so we didn't get the most up-to-date contingency accounting. But I could get that in the next 24 hours via a request to CREC.
Is that the contingency account we sometimes call the FT&E?
No, the FF&E is the furniture, fixtures, and equipment item, and that sits within the $126 million overall budget, but not within kind of the Turner GMP construction budget.
Thank you, Alan. Just a general concern that we stay within budget and we don't creep.
Exactly. I'm regularly asking CREC that they confirm that our financial position on the project is considered positive relative to the completion percentage, and we are continuing to run there very well. As a case in point, change order 103, which is on your list for tonight, at the amount of $201,255, that gets added to a prior approved change order for the west parcel, and so the total west parcel contaminated soil removal is going to come in at around 450,000. It was sort of talked about amongst the subcommittee that we would have been happy if that number came in anywhere under $1 million. So just in our budgeting and in our analysis for that one item with the west parcel soil, we're showing ourselves at only 50% of what we anticipated our costs to be.
Is there any other questions? No other questions? So we're going to call the vote to approve these change orders. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes 8-0. Mr. Pia, 4.3.2.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion to approve 4.3.2 for the Planning Commission. Be it resolved that the abandonment of Tavern Rock Road, that the adoption of the 60-foot wide right-of-way for the realigned Tavern Rock Road from Huntington Road east to the exiting right-of-way, which is parallel to the Merritt Parkway right-of-way and are centered in the existing roadway pavement. 60 foot in width as shown in the town engineering map. Property survey of the town of Stratford, Tavern Rock Road, Huntington Road, to be sold to Thomas Dugas, prepared by Scott Mundy, dated March 2018, a copy of which has been previously provided to all council members, is hereby approved.
Mr. O'Brien, you second?
I second it.
Oh, okay. I mean, quick point of order for the attorney. I thought if it was provided...
All of it or none of it?
Or none. Okay. Okay.
So I'll continue. Gotcha. Yep. So set forth 4.3.2 from the Planning Commission be approved that in its entirety.
Mr. O'Brien, do you have a second? Okay. There's a resolution by Mr. Pia, seconded by Mr. O'Brien. Is there any discussion? Mr. Can, please indulge us.
Of course, and you can get a drink of water if you find yourself needing a distraction. I was just concerned that there's nothing to attest that Mr. Dugas is in favor or not against. Something that represents his agreement with these changes.
If I may, it was Mr. Dugas who asked for the original abandonment of the road. We have a correspondence from his attorney requesting the abandonment. So this is all favorable. It is absolutely, he was the one who originally asked for it. If I may, his original request was to abandonment of the section between the two properties, one of which we conveyed and the other he owned. Mr. John Casey, our town engineer, said, well, if we're going to abandon that portion, why don't we abandon the whole thing? Because that way it finished the realignment. So it was between Mr. Dugas and Mr. Casey is how we got to where we are. Thank you.
Is there any other discussions? If not, I will call this to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes 8-0. 4.3.3, Stratford Redevelopment Agency. This is a question to the attorneys. Did we need to include this in executive session? No? Okay. Is there a
Mr.
motion?
Chair, yeah, I'd like to make a motion on that, that the 4.3.3, the Stratford RDA, be approved as written for the Stratford Redevelopment Agency.
Mr. Hardin, is there a second? Motion by Mr. Pia, second by Mr. Hardin. Is there any discussion on these items? If not, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. You're fooling me now, Mr. Can. If not, we'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes 8-0. Now we have 3 items that we have to go to executive session.
And Mr. Chairman, actually on these, just procedurally, only the first 2 will need to go to executive session.
Okay.
The third can be stricken from the agenda. And because of the nature of executive session and the Freedom of Information Act, you'll go into executive session one at a time. 4.4.1, come out of executive session, go back into executive session, come out of executive session, and then strike 4.4.3 from the agenda. So your motion should be, by a member, that the body go into executive session on item 4.4.1 to discuss possible acquisition of 972 East Broadway. Executive session should include members of the council, attorneys Hodgson, Leclerc, Floric, and Jackson, the mayor, and
Chris Timoniak?
Mr. Timniak. Anyone else? Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion to go into executive session for item 4.4.1 with the parties mentioned by the town attorney, Brian Leclerc.
And that motion is to go into executive session to discuss possible acquisition of real estate.
Correct.
I second it.
Second by Mr. Dancho. I'm sorry. All in favor? Motion passes 8-0.